Welcome everyone to a new tutorial. This design was inspired by Josiah Wedgewood's beautiful blue china. He was the grandfather of English naturalist Charles Darwin. Today we're going to begin by tracing a heart on a stone using a General's charcoal white pencil. I'm going to paint this heart blue to match the tones of Wedgewood blue china. This stone is about the same size as the stone that you can make with the newest mold from the Happy Dotting Company. And today I'll be using Mark's mandalas tools on this design. I'm beginning by outlining the heart in a very pale pink. Take your time on this and just try and get the spacing consistent between the dots. Now I'm using Martha Stewart's Pearl paint in the Duckling yellow color to offset a row of smaller dots in between the pink dots on the inside of the heart. Once this is done, I'll be offsetting white dots on the outside of the pink outline. To finish that outer row, I'm putting a single dot at the top of the heart. Now that that paint is dry, I'm going to do a mother of pearl top dot on the pink row. This will give it an extra glow. And it will look almost like little beads. Allow this to dry completely before we move on. I'm drawing two guidelines with just the edge of a piece of paper as a straight edge, using my General's charcoal white pencil again. And then I'm going to do some sketching. This may take a little practice. You could practice on a piece of paper or on the stone itself, because the guidelines come off very easily with the eraser. And just try and make them the same shape on both sides. And you can follow the sketching I'm doing here. Just adding little curves, and we'll be going over this with white paint. Wedgewood always had the white relief done in scroll work and flourishes along the edges of his china. So just erase it and redraw until you feel like you've got a pretty good symmetry. Now I'm beginning with a white dot on the center of that curved flourish. And then I'll be using my small manicure stylus with the ball end to drag those dots and create white swishes. And I'm just following the guidelines with these, but you'll see I'm going to make a mistake here. I'm not looking to where my hand is resting, and I'm going to rest it right in the paint. Oh no! I've smudged my paint and it's all over the backside of my hand. So I have my Q-tips very handy so I can get that off before it dries. And once I have it all up, I will repaint and try and follow the guidelines. So don't worry if you make a mistake. Just have something handy, a wet paper towel or a cotton ball. Q-tips work great. And just get that paint off and then try again. So I'm working these swishes all the way down to the bottom of the heart. And they don't have to be exact, but try and get them as similar in shape as you can. I'm going to drag this dot down to the point and add a couple little white dots. I wanted to keep this pretty simple. Wedgewood always left the inside a sort of a bisque blue and didn't add too many flourishes. I think I need one more in the center, so I'm just going to follow that guideline. And two more little swishes and we'll be done. While that one dries, let's try another pattern. I'm doing a deeper blue on this stone. This is more of a cobalt blue or royal blue. Again, using that flat edge brush to get a nice clean line around my guidelines. And while this dries, I think I'll do some experimenting with my shape. I decided I wanted to do the center of this design in a different color. So I put a paint bottle on there and then I traced around it so I had a center in the heart, and I decided to paint that a mermaid teal color. And some have asked, how do I decide on my top dot combinations? So I mixed up these paints, they'll be listed in the comments, and then I did some experimenting with the top dots. I knew I wanted to do pastel colors, but I wasn't really sure which of these would look right with the top dots. So I painted some on there, let them dry, and then I just added top dots in different combinations and just decided to use the ones that I thought looked best to my eye. So now that the blue is dry, I'm going to outline in pink and then offset 2 rows of white, just like with the previous stone. Now I'm adding 2 guidelines across the teal center dot. And placing a large pale blue dot in the center of our mandala. Now I'm creating a clock face with my pale peach paint. There's the clock face, and then I will be filling in between the hours with another dot. Now moving to a larger dot in the lavender, one on each of the guidelines. And then placing one in between the guidelines. Now we'll be walking around each of those lavender dots in this beautiful pale pink to create a flower. Now that the center is dry, I'm adding a pale peach top dot because that was my favorite combination in the previous experiment. Now I'm adding white dots in between the petals and adding 3 pale blue dots at the edge of the white dot. And then switching back to the white paint to walk those dots back up to the center of the mandala. Now I'm adding a pale blue dot in between the white petals. It will just fit in there. Once this is dry, I decided to add top dots, and I'm sort of leaning these top dots toward the inside of the dot, so it makes a petal effect. I'm not centering them, I'm actually pushing them toward the inside edge. And then I'm doing the same thing with the pale blue, toward the inside edge of the underneath dot. Now I've let that dry and I'm adding peach dots on top of that, so these will be triple dots, also leaning this toward the inside edge. And I did that on both petals, on the purple petal and the white petal. And then adding a peach center dot on these blue dots. Now it's time to add a few swishes. First I did the bottom with 3 swishes. Just a couple small dots with the white. And then I'm going to go up the side of the heart, just sort of making a curved line. And because I hadn't sketched this out before, I wasn't quite sure how to finish off that corner. And I tried to make it the same on both sides. But in my haste, I miscounted, and they ended up being in the wrong place. There's too much space on the one on the right, so I needed to take those off and start again. So I've reapplied them, and they're a little bit more symmetrical. I'm just going to add a final little swish here in the corner. And that will be it for this design. I'm going to allow this to dry completely before finishing with some resin. Here are the 2 finished stones. The one on the left was finished with the Rustoleum Triple Glaze clear acrylic spray, and the one on the right was finished with the art resin. I just wanted to put them side by side so you could see the difference. Both are protected, both are shiny, but the art resin definitely has much higher glass-like shine to it. The back side of this stone is very smooth. This one, because it has the resin, it has a flat spot where the resin connected with the parchment paper it was sitting on. So these are our 2 final hearts for this experiment for Valentine's. Subscribe for more tutorials, and thank you so much for watching.